Welcome LLB 344 students to your lesson on the Marrakesh Treaty. The Marrakesh Treaty to facilitate access to published works for persons who are blind, visually impaired, or otherwise print disabled, or the MVT, is a part of the World Intellectual Property Organization, or WIPO's, set of international copyright treaties. It is aimed at creating a set of mandatory exceptions for the benefit of the people listed in the title of the treaty, otherwise known as VIPs. This includes those who cannot easily hold or manipulate a book. The treaty was adopted on the 27th of June 2013 in Marrakesh and entered into force on the 30th of September 2016. It requires parties to implement a standard set of limitations and exceptions to copyright rules in order to allow for reproduction, distribution, and making available of published works in formats designed to be accessible to VIPs. Audiobooks and Braille are two key examples of mediums that the MVT allows for. It also permits the exchange of these works across borders by organizations that serve those beneficiaries. A further key aspect of the treaty is the inclusion of authorized entities, which are organizations that are in charge of supervising the cross-border exchange. This includes not-for-profit and government bodies. They can be authorized or recognized by the government as bodies that provide many uses, including education for VIPs. Authorized entities have the duty to establish and follow their own practices in several areas, including establishing that the persons they serve are beneficiaries, providing services only to those people, prohibiting unauthorized uses of copies, and employing due care in the use of those copies. Additionally, the MVT provides for specific rules regarding both domestic and cross-border exceptions. Firstly, it requires contracting parties to have a limitation or exception to domestic copyright law for VIPs. The rights to be limited are the right of reproduction, the right of distribution, and the right of availability to the public. Authorized entities may make accessible format copies, which can be distributed by lending or electronic communication for non-profit purposes. Secondly, the treaty requires contracting parties to allow the import and export of accessible copies under a number of conditions. When importing, an accessible format copy can be made pursuant to domestic law. A copy may also be imported with no copyright owner authorization. With regard to exporting, accessible copies made under an exception can be distributed by an authorized entity to a beneficiary or other contracting party. The MVT gives parties the liberty to implement its provisions with regard to their own systems of law and legal practices, including judgment on fair practices, dealings, or uses, assuming that they comply with the three-step test obligation, as set out in Article 9 of the Berne Convention. This test is used to determine whether or not an exception is permitted under the international standards of copyright and other related rights. Finally, there is no requirement to be a signatory to other international copyright treaties in order to join the MVT. The treaty is open to member states of the WIPO and to the European Union. However, parties that receive accessible copies and do not have any obligation to comply with the three-step test, as set out in the Berne Convention, have a duty to ensure that accessible format copies are not distributed outside their jurisdictions. Thank you for listening, class, and good luck with your assignments on LLB 344 Intellectual Property Law.